Welcome back to the Vires and Numeris podcast. This is episode number 20. Today I have Larry Fisher. He's Director of Communication and Content for UFF Sports. He just recently signed with them. He's also senior writer and the head scout for the Hockey Writers and a WHL scout for FC Hockey. Welcome to the show today, sir. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so as you can tell, I'm a pretty big hockey guy myself, so I love having somebody else on that loves to talk hockey, so I'm sure this will be a treat for me as well.
No, that's awesome. I seen the Penguins logo right away, and can't pick a much better team to cheer for over the last decade or so. They've had a perennial contender and got a couple cups there, so it's been a heck of a run, and hopefully those guys aren't past their prime yet. Hopefully we get them back on the ice soon, and they can take another run.
Right, I'm hoping for one more before Gino and Sid are gone. But we'll get into that here momentarily, I guess. I always start at the onset of people's life. Where are you from?
So I'm from a small town in the prairies in Saskatchewan. The town's called Luseland, Luseland. Population around 600, 650, something like that. So literally just a small farming town, and I grew up on a grain farm of about 1,500 acres of land we farmed. So that's sort of my background, which is ironic. I got in with the UFF Sports guys who are also from the prairies and from an agriculture background, a large number of the founders, and some are oil and gas, and that's sort of the two industries that 90% of my family members are in. And I'm sort of the black sheep that went off and did the media thing, and now and hopefully working my way back into communications role and into fantasy sports, which I've always had a big passion for.
Yeah, it's cool talking to you guys up there. Tony and yourself are the two that I've spoken with, primarily about UFF sports and so far. And you guys grew up in sort of the same environment that I grew up in, so we have a lot in common. What kind of student were you? Were you like a studious guy, or were you more into sports, or were you pretty balanced?
Yeah, maybe I leaned more on the sports side. Honestly, I thought I was going to probably stay home and work in the oil patch, or possibly farm. So I wasn't super motivated to go to school. And then actually I had an accident when I was working road construction the week of my high school grad, and I lost part of my finger, and I wasn't able to work for the summer. So I had to figure out a plan, and I had done some writing for the local paper, just covering my own hockey team, football team stuff growing up, our hometown teams, and I enjoyed it. And another one of the older guys from my hometown went to the same journalism school in Lethbridge, Alberta, so I thought I'd apply kind of last minute and got accepted and gave it a whirl, and here we are, I guess 15, 16 years later, still going strong.
Yeah, I love that you went into hockey, because I studied I did a little bit of baseball journalism. I would have much rather done the hockey stuff. So hockey's in almost every Canadian's DNA, it seems like. Was your household pretty into hockey, or?
Yeah, totally. My dad never played growing up, but all my other family members did, and he was as soon as I got into it, I started a little late. I think I started around 8 years old was when I first played, and I got sent back to play with the younger group. I was in with the kindergarten kids and younger guys for a year, and then I just sort of played 1 year of every level all the way up, and then played rep and went on to play some junior B and stuff. But yeah, my sister played hockey. All my cousins played it. Like I said, it's in the DNA. You're sort of one of the, I don't want to say strange kids, but it's definitely different if you didn't play hockey. Right. It's a very small town, right? 650 people. So I think our kindergarten to grade 12 entire school had under 200 students. My class had 18, but I think like 14 of the 18 played hockey. So you're definitely in the majority if you were a hockey player growing up.
Yeah, it's funny. Canada is, right above us, but Americans have, I think it works both ways. We have like a weird opinion of each other. Like, we don't know. I feel like we don't know as much about each other as we should, being so close to each other. I always have like this sort of outlook on Canadians. Like, you guys grow up and at recess you're like skating around the pond or something. Is that what it's like, or what's it? Tell me more about like being a child in Canada.
Yeah, I guess for 9 months out of the year we can, maybe more like 5 or 6 months out of the year we had an outdoor rink right at our school. So yeah, we did, our recess was on on the outdoor rink. Not you, sometimes with skates, but a lot of times just with shoes on the ice, and yeah, playing hockey and stuff. But our hometown, again, being such a small town, there was almost unlimited ice time at the actual arena. So especially for me, I was a goaltender, so I could kind of practice with 3 or 4 different teams and then still do our shinny or scrimmage sessions. So on a weekend, sometimes I'd be on the ice 7-8 hours a day growing up. So even though I started late, I managed to catch up pretty quickly and make a little bit of a playing career out of it anyway. Had some fun with it and played some senior men's hockey, played a little bit of junior B, and still to this day play a bit of beer league anyway. So it's enjoyable here in Kelowna. I've managed to continue playing at least a couple times a week throughout the last 12 years here.
What position?
I'm a goaltender. Yeah,
Wow.
I can play forward as well. Like I have gear to be a skater, and sometimes I'll play that at the lower levels rec. But yeah, I play goal was what I played growing up. So
that's pretty cool. So you're obviously I'm talking to you about your life in UFF Sports. When did you get interested in cryptocurrency? Is that something that you have a long past in, or is this something that came about as an opportunity because of your hockey background?
Yeah, the latter. Crypto was completely new to me. I didn't know. I had never even heard the word blockchain, to be honest. And even I had heard Bitcoin, and I had a cousin that was interested in that, right? And he made some smart decisions, right? 10 years ago or whatever, and got into it, and he's doing well for himself. But to me, it was kind of always, I would honestly say I was kind of like skeptical of it at first. And I think when I got in with the UFF Sports guys, largely they were coming to me for my connections in hockey, as well as fantasy sports, and certainly in the scouting world, because that's a big part of the platform. Is we're going to do a scouting launch here in the near future, and that's going to be a big aspect of it. So I think they brought me into the fold that way. And to be honest, it was, again, the crypto part at first, I was almost a little skeptical of it, just because in my personal life, it was sort of that thing that I never gave much attention to. And I had a couple meetings with the founders, and they brought it up, but they hadn't really explained how the crypto would impact the success of the platform. And then when they sort of planted the seed with the crypto kitties and how that took off and how this could work similar, I think that's where it really clicked for me. And I was like, wow, these guys are onto something, and this could be obviously the future of fantasy and sort of the next big thing for people that want to own players and teams as digital assets. And I could see how you're able to sort of monetize this, both for the people involved and the people that are playing the game. So it was kind of funny, though. I was thinking, like, how do all these farmers and oil men know about crypto kitties? And it's kind of funny, but I mean, they're smart guys. It's a smart group of people that are putting this together, and I'm learning more and more about crypto every day, because it's going to be a big part of the platform, and in my role, I'm going to have to explain that side of it too. So certainly intrigued by it, but if I told you I had anything more than an elementary understanding of how crypto works and the different types of currency and digital currencies, I'd be lying to you. So it's all new to me within the last 6 to 8 weeks. Before that, I knew what Bitcoin was. I knew the word Bitcoin, and that's about it. Like I said, I didn't even know what the blockchain was. So I'm excited, intrigued, and then looking forward to the potential.
I love it. Yeah, I've written a couple blockchain books. I'll have to send them to you for being my guest and taking your time to come on today. Maybe get you up to speed a little bit more. So you didn't really come from a tech background, but were you interested in tech at all, like growing up, anything in particular, or no?
Yeah, a bit. And it's funny because the wife, as you know, my background's in newspapers and print media, and obviously that's going the way of the dinosaur. There's not much left for print, and they're slashing, and I was laid off a year ago, and it's sort of like, what next now, right? Because in online media, like strictly online journalism, the pay levels are quite a bit different than what they were in print, and obviously the advertising revenue influences what the pay scale is going to be. But yeah, so it was going to be a step back pay-wise to stay strictly as an online writer. And so the wife was very much pushing me of, tech's big, go into tech. She wanted me to go into tech. So it's just kind of weird how this all worked out. And it is very much a tech startup, and it has, tons of potential. And I'm learning more and more every day. But I've had interest in tech, but nothing specific. It's just kind of been out there, and I've learned a bit here and there, and definitely something that now that I'm in it, I'm excited about it and learning more and more every day.
Very cool. So let's get into the mock. I saw you've been doing a mock draft. I think you began that in 2012. Am I right?
Yeah, that's sort of been one of my niches, you could say, as a hockey writer. Is I've always enjoyed that since I was a little kid, being in fantasy drafts, and certainly the mock draft side of it. Of as the draft gets closer, who's going to go where, what, obviously kind of an aspiring general manager too. I'd love to have that role, or a director of scouting, where you kind of put yourself in their shoes and, what does the team need this year? What are they going to need in 5 years, And so that's sort of been one of my niches, like I said, since 2012 when I went public with it. But I've always enjoyed the mock draft side.
So what exactly is the drafting, the draft going to look like, the scouting and the draft? I know the draft already happened for the clubs last year. I covered that a bit, but can you get into like a little bit about the scouting in UFF Sports?
We're still ironing out the details exactly, but certainly there's going to be a scouting auction so we're going to sign up as many scouts as possible, and then they're going to be able to bid on the top prospects, the ones that everybody knows. And then the hidden gems, the steals, that sort of stuff, they're going to be able to register after the auction's over and the main prospects are spoken for. They're going to be able to register kind of first come, first serve basis. So that's where it's really going to get interesting, because we're allowed to register kids that are 3 draft years out. So, this year you can already register kids that are eligible for 2023. Well, we know the big names already. We know Connor Bedard. We know Adam Fantilli. We know Matvey Mishkov in Russia that are, these are 15-year-old kids, but we know about them thanks to the internet, thanks to Twitter, and scouts. So we know the big names, the top 5 or 10 maybe that are even at that age that are projected to be the big names. But after that auction's over, it's fair game to everybody. And we're going to have scouts that are in Russia and Finland, and they're going to know these kids that we haven't heard of on this side of the pond. And so I think that's where the intrigue's going to happen, as well as obviously in Canada, there's going to be people watching their local bantam and midget AAA leagues and signing some of these kids that are late bloomers and all the rest. And then they're going to hopefully their value will grow and they'll be able to eventually go through the entry auction, much like the NHL draft, and they'll be able to be bidded up by the franchise owners and enter the league that way. And if they don't go through the auction, they'll also be almost like a free agent signing, like how the prospects are. The kids that don't get drafted, they get to negotiate. You can kind of say you're almost like you're a scout until the draft, and then after that, you're almost like an agent. And you sort of negotiate deals directly with the franchise owners and sort of set a price, and then they're entering the league that way. I like to call it an entry-level contract like the NHL. So you're a scout and an agent, and it's a really cool concept because it's something nobody else is doing. I'm in a bunch of fantasy keeper hockey leagues, and I run one of them, and they all have rookie drafts, and they all draft the kids. Like Alexis Lafreniere is going to be in our rookie draft this year, and all those kids, Quentin Byfield, and we've already drafted all the guys from last year's draft. But nobody goes past that, really. There's not too many drafts out there where you can draft the 2021 class already, and the 2022 and 2023. So I think that's sort of the niche that UFF Sports and the UFHL is really going to hit on, is being able to buy or purchase and develop these digital assets for the 3 years or however many years before they get to their NHL draft year. And you'll really see, because kids change, who's going to be a top pick in 2023 today, 3 years from now, might not be a prospect at all. You look at some guys, John McFarland was a big one in Canada who was, potential first overall pick and barely played, right? He fell quite a bit over those few years. So I think that part of it, sort of the draft and develop model for the scouts, and the scouts are allowed to trade prospects as well within themselves. So that's a really part that keeps them active and interested. You don't just, you start off by sort of building your stable of prospects, but then you can acquire other ones within the scouting community too. So a lot of it is going to be timing and good decisions, and obviously being able to monetize your eye for talent, get the right kids and develop them and get them through that entry auction, and hopefully, make a little money while you're at it, but certainly enjoy the art of scouting.
Yeah, the competitiveness inside of me. I love sports. I don't talk about sports a lot on here other than UFF Sports, but I'm a huge sports guy, and I've got a good friend, and we always joke around. We're huge Penguins fans, and we joke around about being the GM or the scout. We're out scouting players, so this is all very cool. I'm trying to get him on board with this. So the scouts are basically going to be able to work with individual clubs. Well, if you're a scout, are you assigned to one club then, or could you be a scout for the whole league and then offer your services to different teams?
Yeah, I think we're still ironing out the details on that and how the prospects are going to come in, because obviously we don't want a lot of collusion and money
Right.
deals and where, but at the same time, we do want owners to build a relationship with scouts and down the road potentially hire their own scouts underneath them, right? Or contract with scouts. So we got to find that balance, because you want them to negotiate a price, but you want it to be a fair price. And perhaps they'll still go through a 24-hour auction as they join the protected lists where other owners can bid them up. And at the end of the day, that's good for the scout, right? If he can make an extra little bit of money and it doesn't necessarily go to the team that he worked out the deal with, that would be great too. But I think, again, the concepts are all sort of, we're still ironing out the details, but it's coming soon, and we're going to have a plan in place here within a week, likely.
I actually think this is one of the best ideas that I've come across in blockchain, of like something outside of just tech. Like Bitcoin is digital gold. I write for another project, Epic Cash, is privacy coin medium of exchange. I think that what you guys are doing is so unique that eventually everyone will be doing fantasy sports on blockchain. It might take a while, but I really do believe that will happen in like the next decade. I could definitely see that happening.
Yeah, that's the plan, right? Is to sort of replace the current fantasy landscape, and I can see that potential. That's why, for myself at first I was sort of iffy about it, and then I think the crypto kitties thing is what really sold me on it, and it took me a while to wrap my head around it, but once it clicked, like I said, it was like, wow, these guys are really onto something, and this is going to be the future of fantasy. So I believe that as well, and like I said, I'm sort of putting my reputation and my credibility on the line and recruiting a lot of my family members and friends and scouting colleagues and stuff into the fold, and letting them know that I believe in it, which I honestly do. I think this is going places, and like I said, a decade from now, this will be the standard of the way we do fantasy, and by then the entry fees and the stuff we're talking about now, and the values on the digital assets are likely going to be a lot different. So it's no time better to get in than on the ground level, and hope that it goes to the next level, which, again, I honestly believe it will.
Absolutely. There's no better time to get in something than from the onset, especially something like this, digital assets that are only going to be we expect them to go up. So and then the ability to send them around, and then they're talking about stablecoin. That stuff, I don't know how much has been released about that yet, so I won't ask you about that or get into that yet. But I talked to Tony a little bit about it. Tony's the founder of UFF Sports, and I think there's a lot of potential that's about to be unleashed. And hockey's just the beginning too. I mean, they're talking about doing a lot of other sports, so it's going to be pretty cool to see how this all develops.
Yeah, the plan is to rapidly expand. I mean, they have, I think the thing is the founders, myself included, as part of the team right now, we all come from Western Canada. We, like I said, we all grew up on the pond. We all know hockey best. So I think this is sort of the pilot project. It's sort of the test run where we can fine tune everything and build out the platform, and, build out the website and get the app going, and sort of, make sure we know exactly what we're doing, because we know hockey, and we can apply that part of it, and then really, take it to the next level. I mean, obviously down the road, European soccer, NFL football, I mean, these are the markets where this could be really huge and much bigger scale than the NHL or than hockey. But certainly the big dreams, big plans, and hockey's just the first step in the process.
Absolutely. So what does your daily schedule look like? Are you going to be do you travel around a lot right now, or is a lot of the stuff you do online, like scouting players and stuff? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm based in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, which might be one of the nicest places to call home in Canada. It's a really nice valley, mountains on the side, and a nice lake in the middle, very popular touristy spot. But I'm based here. We have the Kelowna Rockets WHL team in town. And then we have a number of junior A teams within an hour away as well. So we got Vernon, Penticton, and West Kelowna. And Kamloops is just a 2-hour drive down the road as well, has a WHL team. So my primary focus with scouting is the kids that are in their NHL draft year, or the older kids who are still NHL draft eligible but were passed over in previous years and are still playing in the Western Hockey League. So from a scouting side, I'm looking for who do the NHL teams want to draft this year in 2020, as well as a little bit looking ahead to who are the kids that are coming in that 2021, 2022. Like we said, Connor Bedard for 2023. He's the first player who's ever been granted exceptional player status in the Western Hockey League. So he's sort of the Sidney Crosby of the West.
Wow.
Plays a similar style game to Crosby at that young of an age. So we'll see how he develops, but he's going to be playing in the league as a 15-year-old next season, which is a first for the Western Hockey League as far as a full-time player goes. So, but that's my base. I'm based in West Kelowna, and I scout the Western Hockey League for NHL draft-eligible prospects for FC hockey and future considerations. And then I do sort of my own large-scale rankings and stuff just from networking and watching. I mean, obviously I can't watch 1,200 prospects in a year. That's impossible. And I've seen some of these kids maybe for 5 minutes here and there on highlight reels and stuff, but I watch as much hockey as I can. I eat, sleep, and breathe hockey, and particularly draft-eligible prospects. That's sort of my main focus, and obviously for the hockey writers, I'm, like I said, a head scout there. I do rankings and who's rising and falling from month to month, and try and really handicap the upcoming NHL draft.
Yeah, so I'd be remiss if I had somebody of your expert hockey level on here. It didn't ask who my Penguins. What are we lacking? What do the Penguins need?
Matt, eventually you need some young defense prospects. You just traded one away in Kalen Addison to the Minnesota Wild as part of the Jason Zucker deal. You got another one back from the Arizona Coyotes and Pierre-Olivier Joseph, who's got some skill, but you really need some young defensemen coming up. I think that's the big weakness in the prospect pool is those young puck moving. Somebody's got to replace Chris Letang in whether it's 3 years or 5 years. Guy like John Marino's looking good. Marcus Pettersson was a nice pickup, but you need somebody that can really play the power play and put up points and get the puck in the hands of Crosby and Malkin and all the other guys. So I think that's what you need most is some offensively skilled defense prospects. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the focus in this year's draft, to use a number of picks on offensive-minded defensemen. They seem to like the college kids, the kids coming out of the USHL and going the NCAA route. So I'd look for the Penguins to grab some of them. But again, you don't have your first-round pick because that was part of the Jason Zucker trade too. And that's sort of the cost of success in real life, and I assume it will be in UFF Sports and the UFHL as well. The top franchises are going to be focused on winning the Stanley Cup, and they're going to be willing to trade away some of their future assets as digital assets as well as their draft picks. And that's what the Penguins have done for a decade. They've kind of been that perennial contender, but they don't have a lot coming. So it's going to be their scouts have to make hay in those mid to late rounds and really find some good young prospects, particularly offensive defensemen for an eventual successor to Chris Letang.
Yeah, I thought we had that guy in Oli Mata, and then they dealt him away a couple years ago. That was a little strange, but I think it was – I don't think he ended up being the guy they thought he was going to be. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think Oli Mata, when he played for the London Knights, when we were all scouting him for the draft, he was a first-round pick for Pittsburgh. We thought he did have that offensive upside and the offensive element. That's why he went in the first round. But a lot of those kids, when they get to the pro level, they develop into more of a shutdown type guy. And that's his bread and butter. He's in Chicago now. And he obviously had a lot of injuries too, which maybe derailed a bit of his development. Those are such key years from 18 to 23 kind of range. He had a lot of injuries there that maybe snuffed out some of his offense. But certainly he's still a very effective guy as far as being a two-way defenseman and primarily in a shutdown role is what he developed into, sort of that number 3-4, didn't quite reach the upside that maybe the Penguins hoped for, and that a lot of scouts, myself included, would have seen when he was playing for the London Knights in junior, but still a serviceable defenseman. But the Penguins did well to get what they got for him and to be in a position they're in again with, like I said, contending team year after year.
Yeah, I was sad to see him go. I think he won a cup with us, so he can't be too mad. I think he won a cup with us, right? Yeah. So he didn't do it too bad, and Chicago's not a bad place to land. So what would you say as a team owner? They kind of have to be a general manager as well. If you're going to build a club in UFF Sports, how would you attack it? Like, what sort of pieces would you go after first?
You know, I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm not an owner in UFF Sports, and
Right.
if I was, I think, you know, I would target, again, assuming, and I believe the platform is going to grow and the assets are only going to become more valuable. I would like to have Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby on my team, but I think I'd be looking at Connor Bedard. I'd be looking at Shane Wright. I'd be looking at, you know, Lafreniere, Byfield. I would be fine taking over the last place team and building with these young, talented guys that in 3 or 4 years, they're going to be the ones that are worth the most potentially. So I've always enjoyed that part of fantasy, is sort of the rebuilding and the draft and development and getting these young prospects, maybe because I am a scout and I follow the draft, you know, almost closer than I follow the actual NHL. So I would be happy taking over one of the lower level teams, getting a good prospect this year, and really sort of targeting my trades and stuff around who's going to be worth the most in 2, 3, 4 years versus who's the best player today.
Yeah, I think that the long game, I like that. I think that's the way to go on that. Play the long game, get some young talent in there, and stack up for the long run. So when is hockey going to be back? I'm so busy writing right now on blockchain that I really haven't been able to keep up with it. When is the NHL coming back?
So tentatively, the return to play plan was released this week, and tentatively they'll be doing training camps in July, and they'll be going probably the August long weekend, I guess, would be when they try to get the first weekend in August sort of thing would be when they start the play-in round. So the top seeds in the conference will have a bye through the first round, and they'll have a play-in round, probably a best of 5. And so those games will start early August, and by mid-August, the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, as we know it, the 16 teams, best of 7, should be going. But again, it's so much of it depends on, you know, what happens between now and August in the world, and it's very unpredictable. Hopefully everything's open up and we're good to go. But I mean, that's obviously the sort of the elephant in the room is what's going to happen in the world will dictate what happens in hockey. But the tentative plan is to be back playing games in August.
So what is it? The top 2 teams in each division are getting a bye? Is that how they're doing it?
The top 4 in each conference, and then they'll either reseed them. They're still, again, they put their plan out, but the NHLPA and the league are still sort of ironing out the details as well. But tentatively, the top 4 teams in each conference would get a bye, and then teams that were just outside of the playoff window, so like 9 to 12, that range, they'll play the lower level teams that weren't top and sort of they'll do that play-in series, because there was so many teams that were within 2 or 3 points of a playoff spot when the season shut down, and they still had 10 or 12, or I think the range was something like 8 to 11 games left for every team. And some of those teams that were on the outside were, you know, on a 6-7 game winning streak when things shut down. So there was a good chance they were going to play their way in if they got the remainder of the regular season. So this gives them that chance. And so it should be interesting. I don't know. The matchups aren't what they would have been had we just had the regular playoffs. You know, I was really looking forward to the Battle of Alberta in the first round. They had such a good rivalry going this year, Calgary and Edmonton. And the way the bracket is tentatively looking, they would be in a separate sort of division or bracket there, so they wouldn't face off in the first or second round. Edmonton, for an example, would they play Chicago first, and the winner would play Dallas, is sort of the way it's looking tentatively. So not necessarily the rivalries aren't as good as they would have been if, you know, the Flyers and Penguins were playing in the first round. Now maybe the Penguins are playing. I'm not sure who they play, but I don't think it's somebody I think it's somebody from the Atlantic division, actually. So they're kind of divided by conference, not by division, for the brackets right now. But again, those details they're set, but they're not set, right? We'll see where we are in a month when they actually get back to practicing and training camp, and then I'm sure they'll really hammer out the details as it gets closer.
I got to ask you who your favorite player of all time is.
Oh, I was a goaltender, so I grew up watching goalies. So, you know, the Patrick Waz and Martin Brodeurs, those guys were obviously Dominic Hasek.
Marty Brodeur.
Yeah, those are my childhood. So those are the big names. I really liked Curtis Joseph when he came through Edmonton. I grew up in a family of Oiler fans. We were for 4 hours from Edmonton. We went to me and my dad went to a lot of Oiler games growing up. So seeing Curtis Joseph live in Edmonton, he was probably my favorite goalie that I patterned myself after. I had his helmet, I had his pads, you know, I had a lot of his gear set up and stuff. So probably favorite player, Curtis Joseph. Maybe my first favorite player was Bill Ranford, who backstopped the Oilers to the 1990 Stanley Cup when I was like 6 years old. That's maybe what got me into hockey. But I think as I was in my development years, 10 to 15 years old, Curtis Joseph was probably my guy.
And who do you think will win the cup this year?
Oh, man, it's impossible to predict that because we've had by August, we're going to have like a 4-month layoff. So it's really going to be, everybody's going to be healthy. Like there was guys that had, season-ending injuries that were going to be out 4 to 6 months. They're healthy and back.
Weird, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the lineups are going to be full. It's going to be great. So, I'd have to say the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to be a pick that I would feel most comfortable putting some money on. I think that team's loaded. I think they haven't had their year yet, but I think the roster is built for success to win now. So I like Tampa's chances, but obviously that division, again, because they're not doing the bracket, but that division is so tough to come out of normally with Boston and Toronto and Tampa. Like it's a tough division, and now they're going to get different matchups. So the matchups are so much intrigue with that and playing teams that you wouldn't normally play in the playoffs. So I think in the West, Vegas is always going to be strong. I think St. Louis, again, come playoffs, they're going to get Tarasenko back. But again, where are these guys going to be at, right? Because they've been injured, and some of these guys haven't played since, Christmas or before Christmas. So and they haven't been skating really. I think in Sweden, guys have been skating. So maybe the team that has the most Swedish players is going to win the cup. It's full time.
Yeah.
They never had to shut it down. So Vancouver has a ton of Swedish guys. Maybe the Canucks will be a team that surprises a bit because they won't have that rust. And again, you can work out all you want, but hockey muscles are completely different than gym muscles, and even running muscles or cardio muscles are completely different than skating muscles. So I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is how unique the muscles you use for hockey are, and you can't really train them off the ice all that well. So they're going to be rubber-legged when they get back out there, and it's going to take them a while to get up to game speed, and we'll see what teams, maybe the youngest team, right?
Right.
You might be surprised, kind of like the World Cup of Hockey when Team North America, the young guys, took everybody by storm, and that was sort of coming out of the summer, right? It was the first hockey everybody played. The youngest guys had the most energy and the most ability to pick up and go. So maybe the youngest team, maybe the team with the most Swedes, but Tampa Bay is a team that I can't overlook. I think if I had to pick one, you're putting me on the spot, I'll say Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, the Lightning, huh? Okay. I know some Lightning fans will like to hear that. So lastly, I think you and I are going to be having more discussions here, but I wanted to have you on here and introduce you to my community and the, listeners and all that good stuff. What is I know that you were just onboarded, but what does the roadmap look like for UFF Sports? You touched on it a little bit, but is there anything else you want to say about upcoming stuff or anything you want to add at all?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing in the near future, obviously we have 8 franchises left for the Ultimate Fantasy Hockey League, the UFHL. We'd like to, as soon as possible, get people interested and get those franchises sold so we're stable with 31 teams. There's only ever going to be 31 teams. Like you said, now is the time to get in and be a franchise owner. Some people that I've networked with, they think, it's a little bit more money than my current fantasy league, but again, you got to see the big picture, and this is something you want to get in on at the ground level and grow with the league, and the values should only go up. So I think getting the 8 franchises sold is sort of a top priority right now, and then immediately in June, we're going to launch the scouting campaign and the scouting portion of the platform, which I think is going to be a big hit in my circle, which is, my scouting colleagues at FC Hockey, my scouting colleagues at the Hockey Writers. I'm big in the scouting community on Twitter. I'm active on Twitter. There's tons of scouts there that are aspiring guys that spend all day watching these prospects. They know the 2023 draft class better than I do, and here's their chance to go out and get them and really sort of, I don't want to say put your money where your mouth is, but really, figure out who these kids are going to be and sign them up, and you'll have a success story to tell your grandkids 50 years from now that you signed up this kid, Sidney Crosby, when he was 15 in UFF Sports, and here he is now, he's won everything you can win 10, 15 years later, and you developed him, you brought him into the league. So again, it's just kind of the NHL on the blockchain is the way I explain it. And I think it's a terrific idea, genius idea by Tony and the rest of the founders. And I really do think the sky is the limit. But for sure, the scouting campaign is the next big thing. We're going to run that for a couple months, and then we're going to plan our scouting auction as well as our first inaugural entry auction for the 2020 draft class, so the franchise owners can start building out their prospect pool and their protected list. They're allowed to have 27 prospects at any time. And so right now, most of them don't have any or very few. So they're going to be eager to start purchasing some prospects and have that feeder system going. And so the scouting auction, the entry auction, that's going to be between now and whenever the NHL hosts their draft. That's going to be our primary focus. And then, like you said, expansion is going to happen and happen quite rapidly to other sports. Obviously, the big ones in North America, baseball, basketball, football, we're going to hit them all up and hopefully do some of the more individual sports too, golf, tennis, NASCAR, MMA, UFC, stuff like that. So they're planning to hit every sporting event imaginable, and sooner than later is sort of where we're going.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this develops in the next couple of years. I think it's going to be extremely cool to watch. Mr. Larry Fisher, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anywhere you would like to direct people to check out your Twitter? You want to drop your Twitter, the UFF links, or anything like that?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at LarryFisher_KDC, which stood for Kelowna Daily Courier, where I used to work. So that's my Twitter handle. The UFF Sports Twitter handle is just at UFF Sports, easy enough. Definitely, we're doing the social media team has been doing a wonderful job promoting the platform on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So I think definitely give us a follow on all those channels. And I think that's going to be a big part of the future is attracting people through social and really building out that ecosystem where people are passionate on social media about the platform. So for me, you can follow me on Twitter at LarryFisher_KDC and certainly give UFF Sports a follow as well.
Yeah, I hope to talk to you again. This will be available at Bryer.io/podcast and on YouTube at under Pittsburgh Hodler, HODLR. Share, like, retweet, help spread the message of UFF Sports. Get in there, check it out. I'm very bullish on the future of fantasy sports on the blockchain, and these guys are like the trailblazers, in my opinion. So give them a follow. Check out what Larry's doing. Thanks for coming on the show today, sir. I'll say a proper goodbye. Hang on one moment.